Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to the 2026 Nebraska Department of Education Data Conference. My name is Chris Woloshyn. I'll be emceeing the main presentations today and tomorrow. First, could you join me in a round of applause for the Janus staff who put on a great lunch for us today? Thank you, staff. That was great. That was great. Couple of administrative things to cover. The restrooms are out in the main hallway down to the left. There's emergency exits all around and in the main hallways. Please make yourself familiar with them. We have an exciting agenda for the next day and a half. When you take a look at that agenda, you're going to see some subject matter experts talking to you about data quality, data governance, data stewardship that will help you directly in your jobs, which will then help NDE do our jobs. I'm really excited about the agenda. I'm going to try and attend as many of those sessions as I can, and I hope you do too. One procedural note, several of you, this surprised me, several of you have asked me if that QR code on the back of your badge is a drink ticket. I'm sorry, it's not. But we'll think about that for next year. It is my pleasure now to introduce to you Dr. Ryan Foer. He has served at the Department of Education since 2015. Prior to serving at NDE, he was a high school agriculture teacher and FFA advisor. He was a university teacher, educator, and university program assessment coordinator. During his tenure as a university faculty member, he advised graduate students, reviewed theses, and conducted research on teacher mentoring and job satisfaction. At NDE, Ryan has worked in career and technical education, and for most of his tenure served in the commissioner's office in various roles, working with the State Board of Education. He was recently appointed as deputy commissioner, and he served as assistant commissioner and chief of staff. Dr. Foer earned a Bachelor of Science degree in agricultural education at Iowa State University, Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy degrees at The Ohio State University. He's a great guy, though. He is scheduled to complete an education specialist degree from Wayne State in a few months. And he holds a Nebraska administrative certificate with a superintendent endorsement. Ryan is also a registered parliamentarian and an accomplished philatelist. Now, I don't know what that is, but you might ask him. Please help me welcome Dr. Ryan Foer.
Good morning, good afternoon. So Chris did a little bit more digging on me to find out some of these other pieces about my interests in philately, which is stamp collecting, which is super nerdy, but is also a great way to learn history, right? And also about serving as a professional registered parliamentarian. If you want to talk about that in the hallway, I would be glad to. That's a great skill set for boards, and if you're ever thinking about running for elected office, and it's super, super nerdy. Hey, you might be wondering what's going on because the commissioner, Dr. Maher, is on the schedule, and you get the deputy commissioner, womp womp. So I got a little laugh on that. If you don't know that joke, it's the kids are saying it, right? I've got some teenage girls, and they'd be super embarrassed right now if I tried to pull that off because they'd tell me that I didn't do it right or well. Commissioner sends his regrets. He's unable to be here today, not by his choice, but this is on his calendar as an important event each year. And I was planning on attending anyway, and so this worked out, and you get to hear some of the same words, but from me on his behalf. So thinking about the data conference and coming to the data conference, Chris shared about my background. I'm a trained survey researcher, and my mind goes to the word data. And so there might be, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands because I don't want to create too much divide this early in the conference, but there might be some divide in the room over how we say the word data. Is it data or data? Which makes me think about the movie Goonies, actually, if you remember that movie. But then, how do we use the word data? Is it plural or singular? And there might be some factions in the room over how the word is used, data, as a plural term, which a purist would say that is correct, or singular. And if you know Dr. Jane Stavum, she is the other deputy commissioner in our office, and we've gone back and forth over that, and I pulled out this grammar book, and she was right, because now in modern English it can be used both ways. I might use it both ways in my talk here this morning in this welcome address. And super extra points, extra drink tickets, if you know what the singular term for data is. Thank you. There's no drink tickets, right? We already got that. Thank you for taking time to come here today, particularly toward the end of the school year and all of the other things that you have going on back in your districts or back in your regular workplaces. This conference brings together the people who make Nebraska's education data meaningful. Educators, district leaders, data stewards, analysts, and partners. The work represented in this room matters. At the Nebraska Department of Education, we often say, and now particularly under Chris's leadership, that data is more than information. It's a public trust. Every number we collect, validate, and report represents a student, a family, an educator, a classroom, a school, a community. Getting those data right matters, not just for compliance, but for credibility, confidence, and ultimately student success. Last year at the NDE, one of our most significant efforts was the development of a new strategic plan. If you haven't checked that out yet, go to our website. I know everybody gets really excited when they hear about strategic plans. I bet our staff are super excited to hear me continue to talk about our strategic plan. I'm really proud of that strategic plan. From the input that we got from folks across the state, maybe some of you in the room participated in our community focus groups. We had folks showing up from church groups, ESU folks, concerned and interested parents, concerned and interested teachers, all across the state in 10 communities to give input. I believe our staff were engaged in that process as well. And many of you know how much work that takes to build a strategic plan. And then what happens with it next? Because everybody likes to talk about a strategic plan and then they have it, but then what do they really do with it? And I would say we are working to actively implement that strategic plan. The State Board of Education adopted the strategic plan on an 8-0 vote. Sometimes the votes are 4-4, sometimes the votes are 3-5, but on this one it was 8-0, and we're really proud of that and the implementation of that plan on January 1. The plan is centered on 3 major priorities. Sometimes we talk, really it's 4, sometimes we talk about it in a 3+1. So the first one is accelerating student achievement. At the top of our list, that's why we exist, is accelerating student achievement with a focus on 3rd grade English language arts, 8th grade math, reducing chronic absenteeism, and focusing on improving achievement in the high school grades, particularly around data on the 11th grade ACT in ELA and math. Our strategies, including reconsidering and looking differently about how we allocate discretionary funding at the statewide level to achieve those goals, refining school improvement services, expanding the number of summer and after-school programs, and promoting safe and welcoming environments. Think about how many data points you heard in those strategies. The second priority is growing the educator pipeline. We know that we cannot meet our academic goals without a strong supply of high-quality educators. This priority focuses on increasing the number of teachers through expanded education and training programs of study, right? Like in CTE, ed and training, every school district can offer that with a certified teacher, certificated teacher. You don't need a special teacher like an ag. You have to have an ag person and skilled in technical sciences. Any teacher can teach education and training. Through Educators Rising as the career and technical student organization paired with the education and training career field area, and incentives that make teaching an attractive career choice. We know in this room what makes education an attractive career choice. And even for those of us who are out of the classroom or have been out of the classroom for a number of years, or even out of a school for a number of years, thinking about how we promote one of the largest workforce areas in our state to the young people in our state, and thinking about continuing to grow Nebraska. The third strategic priority is equipping leaders for the workforce, learners for the workforce, by improving graduation rates, expanding access to dual enrollment, and providing meaningful career exploration through career and technical education. Data point, data point, data point. We also included an internal priority, so the +1, the fourth, on providing exceptional service. And as we think about what we do at the Nebraska Department of Education in supporting you all, and supporting citizens, and supporting other education professionals who aren't in this room, how do we do that? And what's our customer service approach, both internally to one another, but then externally to you all? And so as we think about building that notion of providing exceptional service, and we do that, we have folks who do that really well every day, whether it's at our help desk, whether it's in teacher certification, in other areas that I haven't mentioned. We want to grow and scale up those exceptional customer service practices. And so we've outlined that through 5 internal values. And we have an acronym for that. It's CARES. Communication, accountability, respect, I shouldn't have to look at the next one, excellence, and service. Communication, accountability, respect, excellence, and service. And so what values, workplace values, do we hold true and expect of one another in order to serve within the organization and serve you? And so in some ways, it's like the NDE's PBIS model, CARES. And that aligns with our mission statement that has held true throughout this strategic planning process. I share the strategic plan not only because I will continue to be the flag bearer for that with the commissioner along with our other staff and leadership, but because none of those priorities can be achieved without high quality, accurate data. Data quality is not a technical side task. It is foundational to strategy, and it is shared work. For many years, education data collection has been driven primarily by compliance. Those requirements matter, but the mindset is changing. We do not collect data just to report it. We collect it to use it, to make informed decisions. And many of you have been doing that for a number of years. And we have too. We're bringing more voice to that through our strategic plan and through more of our efforts. District leaders rely on accurate data to make staffing and scheduling decisions. Educators use data to understand student needs and measure progress. State leadership uses data to identify gaps, target support, and evaluate what is working. Policymakers, like our friends in the legislature, depend on our data, your data, to make funding and policy decisions. When data quality suffers, decision-making suffers. When data accuracy improves, confidence improves, and so does impact. Data accuracy is not owned by any single role or office. It's a system-wide responsibility. From the moment data, it says is, I'm going to say are, from the moment data are entered at the classroom or district level, through validation and review, to statewide reporting and analysis, every step matters. Small errors early on can have large consequences later, and you know the impacts of that. This is why we at the NDE are committed to clearer data definitions and guidance, better validation tools and feedback loops, training and collaboration across roles, and open communication when questions or corrections arise. While we always are striving for perfection, we recognize the importance of continuous improvement and shared accountability in this space. Nebraska's education data is, see I just went back to the singular, is also used far beyond our state. We report to federal agencies like, of course, the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and others, national organizations, accountability and funding programs, the legislature, the governor's office, and the public. We even have conversations with members of our congressional delegation and their offices. Those data shape Nebraska's education profile, funding eligibility, and public understanding of education outcomes. We have a lot of opportunity with the data to tell our story. When our data is accurate and consistent, Nebraska tells its own story clearly and confidently. When the data is not, others tell that story for us. Accurate data is central to transparency and public trust. Families, communities, and taxpayers rely on our data to understand how students are performing, how resources are used, and where progress is being made. Trust is built when data are reliable, timely, and clearly explained. I'm telling you things that you know. Looking ahead, our focus is not just on better systems and stronger systems, but on a stronger data culture, one that treats data as a strategic asset, embeds quality checks into everyday work, and uses data for improvement, not just for accountability. And we need your help in those efforts. Thank you for taking the time to come here today and this week to be part of this conference, and for your work behind the scenes to ensure data accuracy, often under tight timelines and evolving requirements. Your work enables better decisions, supports stronger schools, protects public trust, and advances opportunity for Nebraska students. Chris mentioned this already, but you're going to hear from some of our best today and from some of the best in the field, whether that's in the ESU space or from school districts as well. I was really impressed at the list of breakout sessions, and I'm really excited for Jerry Davis tomorrow for the keynote speaker. I think that is a great value add to this conference and something to look forward to. When we talk about data accuracy, it's not just about checking a box. It's about keeping a promise to our students, their families, our educators, and our communities. At the NDE, we see data quality not as an obligation, but as an opportunity to lead with integrity, act with confidence, and deliver on the goals we have set for Nebraska. We appreciate your partnership, your professionalism, and your continued commitment to excellence. Thank you. I'm pleased at this time to introduce back to the stage Chris Volashin, our Information Systems Officer. Chris mentioned he's the MC. He's also the keynote for today, right? I am so excited to have Chris on our staff leading our efforts in this space at the Nebraska Department of Education. Chris comes to us most recently from Election Systems and Software as a Senior Vice President and the Chief Information Security Officer. Do you say CISO? That's what I'm calling it from here. Chief Information Security Officer. He's held that role at other organizations as well. Chris brings a wealth of experience in the communication and information systems field, across government, and across education. His resume includes organizations like the United States Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Veterans Affairs, Defense Intelligence Agency, the Missile Defense Agency, and Chris served as an active duty in the U.S. Navy. Chris also has experience with the University of Nebraska. And in the few weeks that I've worked with Chris and months, I've thought, this guy probably had a security clearance pretty high, but we'll never know. But I think he brings a lot of great experience from each of those previous experiences and brings those back to Nebraska. He's had leadership training at Quantico, just a great, great resume. And his background in education, formal education, is in the education space, in education leadership and vocational education. Chris grew up in Scottsbluff County, and we were sitting with our friends from Gearing, so there was a lot of fun 2 degrees of separation Nebraska things happening in this room. Please help me and welcome Chris Volashin.
Thank you. Yes, it's true. I am born and bred in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. My mom, Charlotte, my brother, Tom, were educators, lifelong educators in the western part of the state, and I'm happy to continue their legacy. Our agenda for this next portion, as you can see, I'm going to talk a little bit about me and my journey to NDE. I'm a cyber evangelist by trade. I've either been a technology leader or a cyber leader for most of my adult career. So I couldn't leave the room. I couldn't let you leave without a couple of practical tips you can do today, you can take home tonight to make yourself more cyber secure. And I've sprinkled those into my presentation. I'm just going to talk briefly about the strategic plan. You heard Ryan reference it. I'm really excited about that. The purpose of our gathering here today, data governance, data quality, a little bit on AI, as I understand it's a thing here in Nebraska, and then take any questions that you might have. It's true, I've been a few places. I grew up in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, class of '77. That kind of dates me a little bit. My first car was a Chevy Chevette. My folks met and married in Valentine, Nebraska. I probably should have asked before I started revealing those details. Are there any hackers in the room here? Anybody trying to steal credentials? What did I just give you? Yeah, responses to security questions. That's not good, and you shouldn't do it either. First practical tip today. When you go home tonight, look at your social media profile, and if there are items of information there that could reveal your responses to security questions, change them. Nobody's going to hold you accountable. Like me, I graduated in '77. I like, for a security question response, I put 1987 because it makes me feel younger. Instead of Chevy Chevette, I put Chevy Corvette as my first car. You don't have to put accurate information in those security question responses because cyber criminals, bad guys, are counting on you doing just that. You may not realize it, but as a public person, somebody involved in K-12 education, cyber criminals are looking at social media profiles and trying to guess your information. Why? Anybody? So they can try and break in and steal your credentials, your username and password, your email address. So change that up, please. When you get home tonight, look at those questions, your favorite pet's name, the place you grew up in, the year you graduated. Oh, for my high school mascot, where are the 21 county people? What's the mascot at Scottsbluff High? The Bearcat. I put beer can in my security response. Nobody's going to know, but I don't want to give those cyber criminals any help trying to figure out my credentials. Because what they'll do, if they can break into your Facebook, if they can break into your banking app, they're going to try those credentials on your school site, trying to break into your school's email system, because the number one way bad guys compromise systems and steal data is through phishing emails. So don't let that happen to you. I've been at NDE about 6 months, and I have some very clear and well-defined goals that the people that report to me know about. I am here to support and develop my teams and to lead them, coach them, and mentor them to do their jobs better. I oversee the technology area, the data management and application development area, the research and evaluation area. I am very happy with the people I have met so far at NDE, and even in the other office administrators, very passionate people who all want the same thing, to do as best they can with accurate data to accomplish our mission. I can wrap my arms and my head around that, and I know that's why you're here in the room too. I'm working to increase outreach between NDE and the departments that I oversee and you all, including organizations like the Educational Service Units, the Nebraska Information Technology Commission, These are entities that can help steer the future of education technology, education success in the state. So it would be good for me to know them and what they do, and vice versa. I want to improve our internal business processes. I want to make sure that the data that we collect, that valuable information, the strategic asset that Ryan referred to, is handled properly, quickly, and decisively so that we can win grants, secure funding, deploy technology, help the educators and students in your areas. And to celebrate those wins, when we do something big, you're going to see NDE thanking you, thanking the ESUs, the districts, and the superintendents for the big things we accomplish. I think that's appropriate. Ryan referred to our strategic plan, and here are the 4 strategic priorities. Now, this is audience participation, so I'm going to ask some of you to raise your hands. It's probably the only exercise you'll get today. But raise your hand if you could think of a way that better data, more quality data, could accelerate student achievement. Anybody, shout it out. How can we make student achievement better using quality data? Well, when I think of this, I think of understanding student needs, understanding that if literacy at the 3rd grade level is a strong indicator of future success, we should target our activities to making sure literacy at that level is accomplished and meet our goals. How do we grow the educator pipeline? Well, we celebrate the great work that Nebraska is doing through our data, our reports, and attract more teachers in-state and out-of-state, and give the teachers the tools they need, the technology tools they need in the classroom to be more successful. Not everybody goes to college, and there is a growing movement to develop a workforce. So when they leave our public school system, they have a marketable skill, or they have the foundation to achieve one. Better quality data would help us understand the demands that our state workforce needs, and then target education programs to help them. And then provide exceptional service. That's the +1 and the 3+1 description. NDE is committed. We are committed to making sure that our service to you, the data stewards, the data guardians, the superintendents, our service to you is above reproach. It's exemplary. It is going to be the best you've ever seen, and I'm excited to be a part of that. Cyber tip number 2, passwords. They've been around for 40+ years, and we still rely on them to get access to our technology systems. When I joined the Navy right out of high school, we didn't have the internet. I read a lot of paperback books then while I was on the ships at sea. One of my favorite books was Moby Dick, because I always imagined a big whale trying to smash into the ship that I was on, and what would I do if that happened? For those of you that read Moby Dick, what is the first line in that book? I hear it, "Call me Ishmael." Now think of turning that into a password. Change the A to an @ sign, an L to an exclamation point, an E to a 3. Use a password or passphrase that you're familiar with, that you know, and switch it up. Make it really hard for hackers to try and crack that password. Could be a verse from, I don't know, John 3:16. Could be a favorite movie title. Make it something that's personal to you. And then switch it up, because the hacking tools they have out there right now, it'll take a much longer time to try and hack that password. So the password that you use for logging into school systems, make sure that one at least is very secure. And then don't use that password anywhere else. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, Chris, how would I remember such a long password? Who writes them on Post-it notes and sticks them to their monitor? Show of hands, come on. There's no judging here. How about a spreadsheet under your keyboard? I see some approving nods. Yeah, don't do that. I'll tell you a good way to save those complex passwords. My wife loves Keith Urban, and she uses Keith Urban lyrics mixes them up, and that's her passwords. I don't like Keith Urban, so I'll never be able to break into anything that she's got locked up. But be smart about your passwords. Use a good one for your work email, your work system, and then don't use that one anywhere else. You've heard a little bit this morning so far about data governance and the managing of the data that we collect as a team and then use for reporting. You heard some examples. That data that we collect, as you heard Ryan say, comes from a student, some parents, a family. It could be the teacher, the school. It is critically important that we treat that data as the most valuable asset that we have to convey in the data program here in the state of Nebraska. We need that data to be accurate. We need it to be timely so that we can meet our commitments to report to the legislature and the federal government and all the places that data goes. We need to protect it and make sure that it's absolutely secure and not vulnerable to any accidental or unauthorized release. How do we do that? By defining roles. I walked into this job 6 months ago, and the first thing that Brian Helzer told me is we have data stewards in the field in all the school districts. That's a tough accomplishment. When you look at the states around us, not many can say that we have the organization for data collection, data aggregation, data sharing. Not many can say that they have it to the level Nebraska does, and that's really valuable, and it's so hard to create and deploy. We're counting on you, the data stewards, and the people who review the data and submit it to make sure you're using consistent practices, that the data you get is free of errors, and it helps us, and it helps the people counting on us. Protecting sensitive data should be our #1 goal as a data governance organization. Protecting student data, sensitive student data, from unauthorized or accidental release. Yes, there are federal and state laws that guide us in doing that role, but just secure data handling practices will defeat most of the vulnerabilities that you might experience at your level. And it's something that we think about at NDE all the time. Data quality deserves special emphasis. Why data quality? Why such the emphasis on data quality? NDE generates dozens of reports based on the data that you submit to us, that we collect and aggregate and analyze. When we submit those reports based on the clean and accurate data, our lives are easier, your lives are easier, because we don't have to go back and correct things. It takes up extra work to go back and fix an error. We understand there's going to be changes to data. Once you push the submit button or the send button, you find an error, we need you to report that. We absolutely need it to be accurate. But if you can do it the first time through, that would be the gold standard. And it's what we're hoping for. All right, Chris, where the hell am I going to save those complex passwords you were talking about? Well, there are password keepers that are recommended for schools and school districts, like 1Pass and a few others, and they're good tools. They have their own inherent problems. But for your personal passwords, the ones you use for Facebook or your bank or your email, here's what I do. I have a contact on my phone. It's the name and address of my best friend in high school. He's no longer with us, but for sentimental reasons, I still keep his contact information. And in the notes part of his contact, I put hints to my passwords, not the actual passwords themselves, but hints. So for example, if I were to look his name up and scroll down to the notes, I've got a hint that says Moby Dick. It's not the actual password. Please don't go try and call me Ishmael on my stuff, all right? It's not there. I don't use that password anymore. But there are hints to my passwords that would help me recollect if I've put together a 4 or 5 word complex password for my bank. I want a hint to it. If I lose my phone or somebody breaks into it, all they're going to see is a bunch of random words there. You could do this tonight when you get home. Create a fake contact or create a contact for Keith Urban and put some lyrics in there. If that reminds you of your password, it will help you stay secure and help your family. Things like passwords for your routers if you have a home Wi-Fi. That's a big attack surface. Bad guys are going after routers all the time because humans are lazy. We don't update them unless we really think about it or we read an article or news article about it. Keep your special passwords safe in something that you almost always have on you, your phone. And if it's a hint to that password, if you lose the phone or it's ever stolen, bad guys won't be able to break into your stuff. So please try that. Oh man, there is a lot going on in AI in the classroom. NDE has been thinking about this for some time, and we've got some support and motivation now to create a policy for the NDE department, help guiding our employees in how to approach the use of artificial intelligence tools. We're starting out with embedded tools that you might find in Microsoft products called Copilot, using Copilot to help write emails or PowerPoint presentations or Word documents. That's very useful. But in talking to the ESUCC and some of the people in the ESUs and a few teachers, AI is in the classroom today. Students are using it, mostly for good. Educators, staff members, teachers are using it to help develop and make sure their lesson plans are up to date and modern and free of errors. There's a plethora of uses. There are so many uses for AI in the classroom. NDE is going to approach our business processes. How can we make what we do faster and more accurate to help our staff in communications? I'll show you a list of use cases here in a minute. But what we did is we looked at 10 other states to see what the states around us and a few that are known for the rapid adoption of AI, we looked at them. We visited them. I went to some workshops to talk to my counterparts in those states to find out what their approach has been. We are committed to separating what the department does, providing a policy for our employees, separating that from what school districts and superintendents and school leaders want. We are very respectful of the notion of local control. NDE is not going to dictate to you what AI tools you can use. We're going to provide some guidelines, some best practices. We want you to evaluate the risk of those tools and make sure that they are safe for use. And the ESUs, those folks are training up to answer your questions about the technology implementation of AI tools in the classroom. Some of the use cases that we looked at, you can see them here: communication support, data analysis and reporting. We're treading lightly there. We're not going to turn student data loose inside an AI tool. I'm just not ready for that. I need to know more about those controls and what the tools do and what they don't do. Administrative efficiency, absolutely. We can make our processes, our scheduling, our operating procedures more accurate, quick and timely. They could be used for instructional design, possibly student and client services, we don't know, but we're proceeding carefully. Our recommendations, this is not a mandate, this is not directing schools and school districts to do things, but our recommendations for schools is to look at infrastructure, look at your data systems and how they're set up. Are you able to analyze the risk of using AI tools in your area, in your school, in your classroom? If not, the ESUs are going to be prepared to help you answer those questions. The foundation of AI use is AI literacy, making your students and your teachers and your staff smart on what AI is and what it isn't, what it can do and what it shouldn't do. Training for your staff to make sure that they are safe tools to use. Educators should be consistent, I think, in the application of their tools for assessment or evaluation. We should talk about AI in our classrooms, in instructional materials. Any implementation should be monitored to make sure that students are doing what they're supposed to do and nothing else. For AI's part, if you know Duran Avey, her group has been putting together training for educators, for teachers, since at least 2021. And if you want to know more about these topics that are covered, let me know. My contact information is at the end. I would love to connect you with Duran. She is passionate about ed tech and equipping teachers with the tools they need to be more effective in the classroom. In a couple of weeks, the Future Ready Conference is going to be held at NDE headquarters this year. Over 200 people have signed up already. I think there are 8 presentations already on the schedule dealing with AI in the classroom. If you have any interest in that, please sign up for the Future Ready Conference. We'll also be talking about it at NDE Admin Days in July. Classroom use of AI tools could be scary, could be enabling, could drive students to be more efficient and effective in their learning. Our recommendation here is just to be careful what tools you give students access to and to make sure that we're monitoring them for misuse. My presentation wouldn't be complete without spending a couple of minutes on the threats, the cyber threats to K-12. I'd like to invite Scott Isaacson to the stage. He is the technical director for the ESU Coordinating Council. Scott and I work together on a lot of initiatives. We work together to help pass recent legislation that will help improve cybersecurity posture in the classroom. Please welcome Scott Isaacson to the stage.
Thank you, Chris, for the kind introduction there, and thank you for our partnership so far. Also, the partnership of so many of you in this room at the department, teams there, at the ESUs, and at school districts. I really count it as a great privilege that I get to work with you on these things and in our technology. As in our world, a lot of things are, the cybersecurity landscape evolves and changes very quickly, and so I'd like to address some things there. The Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center is an agency that works with the public sector in a lot of areas, state and local governments. They, along with COSIN, have produced a cybersecurity report for K-12 education for a number of years, and wanted to address some of the trends that we're seeing through that data that they've collected. One of the things I'd like to highlight there, just their showing of the 5,000 districts responding to their survey that 82% have experienced some type of cyber incident of varying degrees. And so not very many of us are able to escape that happening to us. Some of the trends that are seeing out there are that the attackers are becoming more sophisticated and really targeting the human element in their attacks. Really crafting very authentic looking emails and websites and things that are meant to attract and get people to click on links and deploy malware into their systems. They're also strategic about the times when they are able to establish a foothold in your networks and systems, about when they detonate or deploy those things. Maybe it's at the start of school, at assessment time, those types of things when there's a lot of activity, so that they can put a lot of pressure on somebody, perhaps to pay a ransom or to meet the demands of those attackers. So ransomware is at the top of the list of the threats and the things that we're seeing out in the field. Those are oftentimes deployed through an email received by somebody, clicking on something they shouldn't. Also, even just more normal emails, perhaps trying to redirect a payment to somewhere that it shouldn't go, or that type of thing as well. A lot of good data there. Your school district technology directors and ESU tech directors have come together over several years to kind of put together some best practice recommendations for districts. And that most recently has taken the form of a letter of that group to the commissioner, and it has helped to move our partnership forward in attacking some of these things. Some of the things to mention there: multi-factor authentication, duo security, or other measures that require you to have a device or an extra factor to be able to sign into sensitive systems. There are automatic vulnerability scanning tools available. The Department of Homeland Security has tools that are free to education. Endpoint detection and response are agents that ideally are on every system. These are still rather expensive, but we have done some cooperative purchasing to get those on. But they're designed to detect suspicious activity on a workstation or a server, and to be able to stop that automatically before it causes damage and exposure to our networks. Good backups. In the event that a ransomware attack is successful, having a backup that's not also corrupted by that attack is important. Training for users on what they should and shouldn't do with suspicious emails, how to recognize those things, and to report versus clicking on suspicious links. The way that things are deployed, not giving away too much access on machines. I know this is annoying to people when you can't necessarily just go and install a piece of software on your machine when you want to, but there are reasons that it's a good idea to work through channels in the district and be able to make sure that only allowed software and safe software is put on there. Separating our networks, so maybe heating and air conditioning systems and students and servers are not on the same network segment but are separate, so that if something was compromised on one of those, that it doesn't spread to other areas as easily. Keeping up with updates. We all have patches to things and need to make sure those are deployed. And Chris has talked about password management tools, keeping good and unique passwords and credentials for each system, and keeping them in a safe place so that you're able to access them, but not have somebody come in and read your sticky notes or papers under your keyboard and be able to access things that they shouldn't. We, to some of these ends, we have done some work with cooperative purchasing through districts and ESUs. Duo Security is an example of a multi-factor authentication solution. Across the state, districts and ESUs are deploying this on some of the most sensitive accounts. We have a pool of 10,000 licenses, and because of that volume, we're able to get quite a discount. This would be $72 per user at list price, and actually we have, since this slide was made, been able to reduce the price to $8 per user because of the participation of many of you, so thank you for that. End user training platforms and anti-phishing solutions. The network operations group at the ESUs is looking into these and evaluating the landscape of those, and we'll be coming up with a recommendation for a system. Currently, a lot of folks have Proofpoint. That's now known as ZenGuide. KnowBe4 is another one that's very popular out there. We're working to work together and reduce the pricing on that as much as possible. Chris mentioned the legislation that just recently passed. That was LB 937. That had a number of items attached to it, but one was a cybersecurity assessment project that will report back to the legislature as soon as possible about the state of cybersecurity in schools. We're working now to formalize and finalize a steering committee for that. That committee will be selecting the assessment framework. An important goal of that is to make that as low a burden as possible. So it would be ideally 1 hour or less to complete that assessment. We would very much appreciate and welcome your participation in that. We will be compiling and collecting those results as efficiently as possible, using meetings that may already take place, such as technology director meetings that the ESUs hold, and those types of activities as well. We're partnering here with the department and with the Office of the CIO of Nebraska as well to accomplish this. Thank you again, Chris, for sharing some time this afternoon. Thank you all for your partnership in this important work. And we'll welcome Chris back to the stage to wrap us up.
I don't want to stand too much in the way of you getting to these exciting sessions. First, I want to thank EduPoint, our platinum sponsor. They have done an amazing job to help us, and without sponsors, conferences like this would not be possible. Please join me in thanking EduPoint for their support. I usually ask at the top of my presentation if there are any other veterans in the room or maybe family members of veterans who know what it takes to support this nation. Raise your hands if you're a veteran or a family member of a veteran. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. If there's one theme to my presentation today, no, it's not cybersecurity. I wish it was. Maybe we'll set up a separate presentation for that, and then I can bore the crap out of you with cyber stuff. But data quality, data governance, from collecting data, turning it into action, that is what the takeaway should be for you today and tomorrow. As you attend these sessions, please be inquisitive. Please ask questions. Get the answers that you need so that when you go home tomorrow, you have a better understanding of what we're trying to do together. As you heard Dr. Foer say, this is a team effort. We need you to help us with accurate data so that we can turn those reports into action, win more funding, attract more teachers, and help our students achieve all that they can. And please don't forget, have some fun while you're here and make networking connections, talk to people. I'll bet there's people in this room that are experiencing the same thing you are when it comes to frustration or a lack of understanding or needing more information. Please connect with your peers here, have some fun, and thank you very much for your attention today. I've left you some time to take a quick break, get a bio break, and then be prepared for your next session.